How are you, mate?
I'm fine, Chris. Fine. Good.
And
Have a
you're,
cup of tea.
are we allowed to say where in the world you are? It's not going to get you
No,
targeted.
I'm fine. Well, no, I'm in Spain. I'm in Spain in the lockdown of all lockdowns. It's like being under the Stasi over here, mate. I tell you.
I'm just going to say, Bernie, I'm just going to say a few key words here,
Mm.
which apparently work well for promoting our video when it goes on YouTube. That's not actually the reason I do it, but I think it just helps to get people at home to know what sort of thing we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about the Royal Marines,
Yeah.
unarmed combat, MI5,
Yeah.
the intelligence services,
Yeah.
Middle East, bodyguarding, this kind of thing. What made you settle in Spain?
Well, I haven't really settled. To be honest, yeah, I bought a place in Spain with. It's one of the things I did when I got back from Iraq. I thought it would be a good way to invest my money, but and use it as a holiday home. So I lived between here and Belfast. Unfortunately, I flew over the day the lockdown happened over here, so I'm sort of stuck here. And you know, my family, my wife, family, and friends are back in Belfast. You know, so that's just the way it is.
So
It's the
not
way the
even
cookie crumbles.
not even with your contacts in high places could you get yourself back?
No, no, no way, no way. You know, I think you know, parachuting into the airport in Belfast would be a bit much for anybody, especially at my age, mate. You know, my knees don't, my knees wouldn't put up with it now. Yeah.
Should we start with the Royal Marines? You were a PTI in the Marines, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. I spent 24 years in the Corps. I left as a colour sergeant, joined as an 18-year-old. I joined in 1973, and my first unit was 4-5 Commando. So straight in as an 18 and a half year old, 19-year-old, straight into Northern Ireland, first tour, Crossmaglen, 1974. And I was still sort of knocking about Ireland doing stuff, you know, when I left. So yeah, you know, Ireland's played a big part in my life.
How was that initial tour then for an 18-year-old? Were things going bang?
It was when there was a proper shooting war. You know, we were in a place called Crossmaglen in South Armagh, and there was the big IEDs. You know, the big improvised explosive devices on roads and stuff like that. So you had to helicopter in, but it was all patrolling. It was all exactly what, you know, Royal Marines should be doing, and it was all yeah. It was a great time. I know it sounds strange, but it was a great time. You know, it was physically demanding. You know, and it was lively. You know, it was a lively tour.
Did you lose any Marines?
Yeah, we lost two really good friends over there. One of them was a personal friend of mine, a bloke called Mickey Southern, and it actually shows you how different the attitude was then in the Corps to stuff. You know, I talked to Marty about it, our mutual friend there, you know, Marty Stalker, and we talked quite a bit about PTSD and all the rest of it. You know, I can remember basically what happened is that we'd reoccupied an observation post, an OP as we call it, you know, overlooking a place called the Drummer Caval, you know, looked into the south, and it'd been left, there was an argument whether they should go back in or not, because it was against all decent soldiering principles, really. But you know, the guy, this guy who died in the end, Dennis, didn't have a lot of choice, and he had to go back in. So without, you know, digging up old wounds for people, but you know, the IRA had managed to bury about incredible amount of commercial explosives in the front trench. So there was it was like a trench type area, but there was a dry stone wall in the middle, and at the back was a sort of sleeping area. So the guys in the front of the trench were obliterated, basically, and happened very, very early in the morning. And then the company then had to go back in and literally, you know, put a cordon in, and then you had to go an extended line and just pick these guys up, you know, just little bits you made. So yeah, it was pretty traumatic for that time.
And
So
the problem when you put a cordon in, Bernie, is there can be a secondary device, can't there?
Oh, there can be, yeah.
And that device is designed to take out more people than the first.
Yeah, yeah, there is. But you know, when you're a 19-year-old, 18-and-a-half-year-old, 19-year-old Marines, you don't think about that. You just do what you're told, don't you? You know, you let other people, you know, think about the tactics and all the rest of it. And it was done properly anyway, because, you know, where we're talking about, really, I mean, the majority of it was in the south anyway, you know. And the area of
bandit country, they call it, don't they?
Yeah, they called it bandit country. And we sort of anyway swept this up. Anyway, this is the PTSD bit of it. One of the guys feels a bit shaky at the end of it. I mean, the guy's only my age, you know, 18 or whatever, and he goes up to the Sergeant Major and says, "Oh, I feel a bit strange, Sergeant Major, you know. I don't know whether I can go on, you know." And the Sergeant Major was a rock hard, made of like face made of rock, you know, type ML. And he just said, "Listen, son," he said, we've got a saying in 4-5 Commando, and it's this: it's dry your fucking eyes and get on with it. That's what he did. That's what we all did, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So no, not really what you call what, you know. I mean, you'd know as trim counselling, you know, where you know, after you guys had a contact, comes in and the guy sits him down and say, you know, how do you feel about it? You know, which actually works. But no, there were different times. Remember the guys that took me through training, and the guys who were the senior NCOs and junior NCOs had been to Aden, Borneo, places like that, you know, where their idea of counterinsurgency was totally different than maybe, you know, anybody else's idea of counterinsurgency, you know. So that was my introduction to that side of life.
Gosh, did you go down south to the Falklands?
No, I didn't. No, I was actually probably one of my biggest regrets, you know, because at that time I'd been a professional soldier for nearly 10 years. So no, I always regret that. But on the other side of it, I was at a place called HMS Warrior, or Northwood in London, where the actual war was run from, you know. That's why they just wouldn't let us go anyway, you know. Everybody volunteered to go down, obviously, but, you know, I was a corporal, and I was in charge of one of the watches down there, you know, like 14 Marines, looking after, you know, not only you know, what went on during the war, but also the nuclear deterrent, you know, is a lot to do with down there as well. So yeah, so how we couldn't do anything really, but it was interesting for me, frustrating, because you could go around and you'd do your security checks in the evening, you go around the map room, you'd see, oh, right, I see 2 para are going to hit Goose Green tomorrow, you know, or whatever. you know, and you'd be up on whatever was going on, you know. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yes, my God. And you become a PTI. Was this what made you decide to go into that branch?
Accident, really. To be honest, I was again not too long ago, not too long after that. I was in working at Warrior, and I was working on a door to try and get extra money, you know, and quite a few of my bootneck friends used to do it, so it was quite a lively club we worked at. We had this big scrap one night, and I managed to actually seriously damage a couple of guys that I shouldn't have seriously damaged. And cut a long story short, this sort of West London crew decided that they would take their revenge. So that they firebombed a house that they thought I was living in. Fortunately for me, it was an empty house. You know, it was number 17, not number 37. And I found myself, because this family had Irish connections, the branch got involved and said, you need to move. So I fessed it all up to the powers that be, you know, what had happened. And because I passed a PT acquaint thing like 4 years before, I found myself on a PT2's course, which I'd never regretted. But you know, it was a great course to be on. But one minute you're there, you sort of you know, in the midst of London. Luckily, I'd kept myself fit, and you know, doing one sort of job, and the next minute you're in this gym getting beasted around the gym. But I love the PT branch, a fantastic bunch of people. Yeah, I never regret doing it. I wasn't a particularly great PTI though, mate, really. I mean, my gymnastics and stuff like that was absolute crap, complete crap.
Your what was?
Gymnastics.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was the old epitome. In the old days, it was the epitome of, you know, that a PTI should be able to go and, you know, take a class, do a back somersault, you know, on the dais, you know, come off and just all singing or dancing. I was never that man, you know, never that man. Do you know what I mean? By the time this happened to me, I was like in my 30s anyway, you know. But yeah, I got through it okay. And I got some great friends for it. My forte had always been the martial arts anyway, you know, whether it be boxing, karate, jiu-jitsu, that sort of stuff. So I started teaching that, and I was teaching that when I went to the Corps. And actually, the RSM there at the time, a bloke called Peter Brown, actually sort of helped me a bit in some ways. You know, like in the Corps, you do need a mentor of some sort, don't you? You know, you'd always need somebody to sort of fight your corner. And he was that man. And because he wanted that unarmed combat training back in the Corps, you know. So I sort of, that was my part of the ship, as we say in the Corps, you know, from then on. So that's what I done. I was your unarmed combat guy. So and also took guys through training and stuff like that, and done all the things that, you know, a PTI is supposed to do. You know, I took the class, you know, class taking, you know, Swedish PT, bottom field, you know, commando tests, commando course, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was accident really, Chris, to be honest. It's just like what sometimes in life it's like dominoes, isn't it? You know, you've got a big line of dominoes. One, hits another, and before you know it, fucking here I am in Spain, and I'm, you know, in my mid-60s, talking to you. You know, one thing, everything in my life has happened in a crescendo. Nothing has been particularly planned. I've always wanted to achieve things that I've wanted to achieve, but just happens because it happens in a sort of almost natural way, but it's not natural. It's like, you know, it's one domino hitting another and just propelling you forward, you know. And before you know it, I'm sitting here talking to you, mate.
Mm. And this, in my experience, this will open doors as well.
Well, yeah, I hope so, because I'm my generation, okay. And you know, I love talking to guys like you. I love to talk, you know, with our mate Marty Stalker, very, very bright, you know, film producer type, you know, finger on the pulse, knows exactly what's happening with social media and how to do this, how to do that. I'm not that person. You know, I come from a different generation, but I am trying to get there. I've had, you know, I've got a website up and running now, and you know, I'm trying to sort of engage in different ways to try and, you know, sell my products as such, you know, my books and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm not, it's hard, you know, it's hard, but I realize it's hard for everybody. But, you know, for people in their 20s who just, I mean, you know, I could talk to, you know, my granddaughter, and she'd be talking to me and having a good conversation. She'd be texting 10 of her mates at the same time, you know. I mean, I don't know how that works, but that's just what they do, you know. So
we perhaps need to talk about a podcast for you, Bernie, because you're never going to be short of fascinating guests, right? And I never really started selling books in any significant quantity until I started podcasting. And then when people become interested in you and they're like, oh, and he's got 6 books out.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got 6 other, you know, there's kind of like 6 other calls to action there that people can access that ordinarily they would never have found out about. And it's, yeah, it's great. We'll talk about that when we've said our goodbyes to our wonderful audience.
I think so. I mean, I've sort of, I think I've had 1 tweet on Twitter and 1 Instagram post so far, and obviously, you know, Facebook, you know, Facebook, that was one time, that was the only way to talk to my kids, you know, because they'd never answer the phone. But yeah, I'm a bit better than I was, and I realise it's something that you need to do, you know, especially in our sort of situation, buddy, you know, because as I said before, we don't realise people are interested, you know, in sort of some of the crazy lifestyles that we had, you know, not really sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know. Or,
yeah, you can't. It's just that you can't explain to somebody that hasn't been in the Marines what some of the crazy stuff you get up to just by virtue of being in the Corps.
Yeah.
You know? And some
well,
of
you would never do it on your own, would you? You know, I mean, like we're talking about the Union Street, and I can remember coming back from South Armagh. I was with 40 Commando. We're in '76, and there was big hoo-ha in the press. You know, nuns go on rampage in Union Street, and we had a rig run, and we decided that we just take sheets, you know, dye a couple black and dress as Dominican nuns, and that was our troop. And obviously ends up in a fight, doesn't it? You know, in them days, you know, it was sort of more natural.
Isn't it? Isn't it sad, Bernie? Isn't it sad? They've already banned wearing women's clothes, which is just, you know, that's against your fundamental human. You should be able to wear what you want in this world, as long as you know, you're not setting out to hurt anyone. They will ban rig runs, won't they? They'll ban fancy dress. They will.
Yeah, and that's the funniest thing, isn't it? You know, some of the stuff. I can remember coming back from Brunei and with 4-1 and having a 70s night rig run, you know, which was handy for me because I still had some of the clothes.
still do, mate, don't you?
you know, but guys were getting platform-soled shoes made up by the local cobbler, you know, in Sitang Camp, outside Sitang Camp, and just getting bigger and bigger, you know. And it was so funny. So we're in Deal, and we got the ridiculous clothes on. I mean, absolutely over the top. And luckily, you know, there was no trouble because you couldn't fight with them on anyway. No, so it was good fun. No, I don't regret anything of the Corps. I regret some of the things I'd have done differently. Some of you know, some of the mates I've lost, you know, I bitterly regret that. And how random life is, you know, how it makes you realise that life's very precious, you know, and it's probably more precious than the average civilian thinks it is. You know, it's like with this COVID-19 thing, all of a sudden people are going, they're realising, you know, that people are dying, you know. Well, that's the way we've lived our lives, really, you know, because we don't, you know, you go away. I spent nearly 5 years with the British Army in Helmand, US Marines and the British Army. And I was on the Afghan side of the camp at Nadi Ali. So I was with them guys like every day of the week. And you know, you'd see over the period of that time, you know, you'd be chatting to somebody, you know, and a young US Marine or something, you know, and then you go to breakfast next day. Where's Corporal so-and-so? Oh, he died yesterday, you know. The guys come in, they're a bit glum. What's up? Oh, Corporal so-and-so got tagged. You know, he's back in. You know, he's been dusted off. Don't know what's happening to him or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
And you just accept that because it's just your life. You know, and if you didn't accept it, it would. Well, you shouldn't be there, really. To be honest, if you can't accept it, you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, we lost a lad in Ireland, but no sooner had we got back from Ireland than two of the lads that were in my troop died within weeks of each other. One knocked off his motorbike, and
I was just going to say motorbike accident. Yeah.
The other one just walked into the guard room one day on duty. Heart attack, just an unknown heart problem, and yeah. So within the space of like this, and you know, we're talking like 2 months, maybe. There's three people that are effectively your brothers and your best friends.
Yeah,
have just died of these random. You know, the lads. I think it was 2 lads killed surfing on a train in Thailand, you know, and it went through a tunnel. Yeah. That's them gone. Yeah. Stevie, who I was on ship with, knocked off his motorbike in London, was laughing. He was with his oppo who was driving the bike, and they were laughing in the middle of the road, and then a truck went over Steve, you know, and anyone who knows the guy I'm talking about would just say he was the loveliest man. He was such a kind guy, and that's it. And you don't like mourn it. Well, I mean, maybe some people do. You just go, oh God, you know, you'll hire a car and go up to the funeral or whatever, and then you just crack on with your life. And
that's it. It is that ethos that I think the Corps does give you, is crack on. What else are you going to do? You know, you can't do it. And then when you get to, you say, you know, I didn't go down south, but I went through the Second Gulf War. You know, with the US infantry, and that was absolute carnage. You know, because it was just, I mean, that US war machine is just like, you know, say shock and awe, you know, sort of sums it up, you know. So we were traveling at the very end, you know, with the medics and stuff like that, and you were just going through a battlefield and there would just be bodies everywhere, you know, tanks, you know, smoking away, you know, bodies burning, you know, guys in trenches, you know, that have been just killed with concussive effects of ordnance. Just absolute total carnage. And you realise then how, not only how precious life is, but also how easy it could be snuffed out. You know, it's just like, you know, it's sort of.
I don't think people do realise though, Bernie. You know, I'm putting together a video at the moment, a podcast that I did with 2 friends of mine. They ran aid convoys into Sarajevo during the siege.
Yeah.
You know, they risked their lives at every checkpoint, getting the food essentially to the kids. And just watching some of the footage of that this morning, like, I don't think people understand. You've got a father holding his baby.
Yeah.
Who's just been killed for some stupid fucking reason that in 5 years, even in 5 years' time, certainly 10 and 20, no one's going to give a fuck about. You know,
no, it's true.
No one's going to give a shit that it was that political party arguing with that or the.
No.
You know, and this father is crying over losing, and any parent gets that, right? Any parent gets that, but because the media is so clever at hiding this and selling this narrative all the time, we still got our young people think war is for heroes and let's go and like smash all these.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, a lot of guys, I mean, I know like the Iraq war has been portrayed very, very negatively. And well, let's face it, it was the wrong political decision for a start, you know, and done nothing to improve it. Although I feel a bit, I don't know, I've got to be honest, I mean, because I'd done it as a media person, as a contractor, and I was very, very well paid, you know, very well paid. I feel sort of guilty in a way, you know. But when you talk to the young American Ranger guys that were in our battalion, you know, I mean, they were doing it for all the right reasons as far as they were concerned. You know, they were doing it for, they're going to liberate Iraq, you know, they're going to take Saddam Hussein down, you know, because he's got these weapons of mass destruction that could kill us all, you know, and everybody, you know, everybody thought he had, because we were in like full NBC kit for, you know, right the way until we got to Baghdad. So, I mean, you know, it's not as if nobody really thought that was the case. Everybody just did think it was the case. And they done things for all the right reasons that turned out to be all the wrong reasons, you know, because up to 2 years after the war, if you ask an average driver, one of our NBC drivers, you know, one of our media drivers, and they were paid a lot of money compared to other Iraqis, and you said to them, you know, what do you think of Saddam? And they'd say, well, I would love him back, because at least at that particular time, you know, we could walk around the streets and people weren't getting killed or raped, or, you know, you could drive past Fallujah without getting robbed, and, you know. And
let's not forget, it was a stunningly beautiful country, wasn't it? You know. Oh
yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, it's a huge country, isn't it? I mean, like. If you're up in Kurdistan there, you've got scenes that, you know, Scotland, you know, it could be Scotland, and then you've got the deserts, and then you've got, you know, Baghdad was a lovely city. It was like, though, it stopped in the 1970s, if you understand what I mean. So you'd be in a hotel, and you know, that telephone would be circa 1970s because of sanctions and stuff like that, you know. But the people were fairly happy, mate, to be honest, you know. And initially when we went there, you know, you were going around to do stories about the local art, you know, scene in, you know, University of Baghdad or whatever, you know. And, you know, it soon went to, you know, this Shia-Sunni war, which was every bit, you know, as bad or as worse as anything that went on in the Second World War, you know. It was absolutely terrible. Anyway, I think I've jumped ahead a bit, haven't I?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's okay. I I'm trying not to go down any sort of political route, only because like anyone listening knows I've done that to death, and it's not intentional. It's just I believe in. Well, it's not important. But could we go back, because you taught the Special Boat Service, so the British Special Forces, Special Ops, I believe our American brothers and sisters refer to them. You taught them how to fight. How did that come about?
Yeah, I'll qualify that. I mean, I think the majority of guys who get to that stage know how to scrap. You know, that's what they do. You know,
They might not be afraid to scrap. It doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do.
Well, unarmed combat in the Royal Marines has always been part of our DNA, really. Okay, but we've lost it a bit. We lost it a bit in the 70s, I think, and because whoever was particularly in charge of that side of it would lead it down his alley, you know. So if the guy was a judo guy, everybody would roll around playing judo, you know. Or if it was like guys like Big Ted Kelland, who was a karate guy, everybody will be doing karate. What we tried to do, and not only me, but other guys who were around the Corps at the same time as me and are like-minded, we tried to get it back to basics. You know, we tried to get back to the original W.E. Fairbairn, get tough, stuff that works, that you can train to anybody, you know. So
Bernie, can you just, for our listeners, explain, you know, the commandos were formed to go behind enemy lines in the Second World War. They had their commando. Could you explain, you know,
basically then, a thumbnail sketch. So, you know, Second World War, we've seen the film the other day, the Darkest Hour, fantastic movie. So things were getting pretty bad for the Brits, you know. Then post Dunkirk, we'd had a bit of a kicking by the Germans, and one of the things that Churchill stood up, he stood up two different types of organisations, and I'll say only two different types because the actually parachute regiment commando people, that was the same ethos, that come from the same thing, you know. This idea that we need to have soldiers of the hunter class. We need soldiers that are going to be aggressive. We need soldiers to go behind enemy lines to stir things up, you know, to build up that sort of spirit at home that we were going to retaliate. And of course, the other thing he formed, or was instrumental in forming, was the SOE, Special Operations Executive, which were the guys that went in and organised the spycraft and organised the resistance organisations in the Balkans and in France and all the rest of it. So they're very much allied, if you like. This sort of commando ethos was where they first started training guys, you know, in sort of super fitness. You've got to be a super fit guy. You know, you've got to be able to do your business at the end of extreme physical exertion. You know, even now, you know, at the end of a 9-mile speed march, you know, at Lympstone, when guys say, as you know, they ought to be expected to be able to do a troop attack or something at the end of that 9 miles, you know. To that ends, so when things were sorted out halfway during the war, they all trained at a place called Achnacarry in Scotland. And Achnacarry was the ideal training ground. You know, you had, it was Lord Cameron's place, Achnacarry Castle. That was where the officers' mess was for the training centre. The guys used to get off the train and with all their kit bags and walk, you know, 8 miles to their tented accommodation in the winter. And they were absolutely put through a super fitness regime. And back in them days, the guys who were the unarmed combat instructors, there was two major guys who were running the training. That was a guy called Sykes and a guy called Fairbairn, captain and a lieutenant. And these guys were seconded. They were ex-military, but they were seconded from the Shanghai police. And what they'd done is they'd study all the martial arts in Shanghai, because it was one of the roughest places to be a policeman, because these guys could scrap. So they learned a lot of the techniques. And then they devised this thing, and it's called Defendu. And Defendu was the first unarmed combat was taught to the commandos, and it was basically how to kill somebody with your bare hands. Okay, there was lots of other things. Knife fighting was a big thing. Not so much fighting with a knife, but killing somebody with a knife. And that's, if you see this dagger here that I've got on, which is a commando dagger, Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife. That's a symbol of our commando forces. But that was just meant for taking sentries out, for killing people, stabbing people, basically. And that's what the wartime commandos used, you know. And we had a very fascinating meeting, me and this guy, Dave Richardson, who was a friend of mine, who was working with me on the same sort of projects at Livingston, big old monster of a man. We were down at the Carry meeting some of the old commandos that, remember, they were still alive there. This was in the 80s. And we were meeting some of these guys, and they were telling us, you know, these stories you wouldn't believe, mate, you know, absolutely, you know. So did you ever actually use a commando knife? Yeah, 4 or 5 times, you know, and just absolutely hard as nails guys, you know. And I suppose when you look at it, they would have been, I don't know, they'd be younger than me now, you know, but real top guys. And so what we done was we revamped the whole thing and packaged it, and then we started training recruits in the old ways, if you like. Okay. Funny enough, Chris, I went back in 2015 to Livingston, and I'd done a full week there as a guest instructor for the Corps' top unarmed combat instructors. But it's changed completely. Not completely. It's as good as it ever was, but it's taken a lot more seriously in some ways, because these guys now, the likes of guys like Ricky Thomas and I could name quite a few of them, but they were the guys who looked at the whole thing and actually alloyed their training to what the US Marines do, you know, which is a long course, you know, where it's sort of it's mixed martial arts based, you know. There's a lot of Gracie Brothers stuff in it, but there's a lot of really good stuff in it as well, you know. It's a lot of striking, kicking, you know, shin strikes, all the stuff that really is going to be functional, you know. Nothing
My
that you need.
understanding, Bernie, is that, you know, the commandos in the Second World War trained up there in Scotland, potentially put onto an aeroplane in their section, flown up to Norway to, say, attack the Germans who are building their, you know, their heavy water plants, so they can create all this kind of weaponry. And they had to be able to steal up behind an enemy sentry, grab them around the mouth to silence them, and get that knife in quick, right? Now, in a war film, that looks quite a simple thing to do. In a reality, you've got to kill another human being with your bare hands and this little sticky thing. They're going to squeal, they're going to fight back, they're going to be screaming, they're going to be scrabbling for their weapon, right? My point is, it's one hell of a skill to be able to do. And then you've got to be prepared that he turns around and he's a bigger guy than you, some big German lad who's been eating his sausages, and then it's a fight, literally a fight to the death. Yeah. Fast forward, where the Marines took on more of a, rather than a commando raiding role, they took on the infantry role. So the same as the British Army, where the chances you're going to be in the situation I just mentioned is kind of possible if you're jumping into an enemy trench, but it's slight. But there's so many hundreds of thousands of people in the military that are going to go into that war. You can't train 100,000 infantrymen or whatever the British figures is, 50,000 to all have that skill. And then, of course, in Northern Ireland, it just absolutely wasn't really needed. Now, what with Afghanistan, it's going back to, I mean, some of the boys and girls, I hasten to add, that have been over there have had to get hands on.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting, isn't it? Just because you join the Marines, that don't mean you know how to fight. Loads of us used to get...
And I think probably it's different now for young people joining the Marines now, because I mean, like you know, if you look at a troop of Marines, I say I was back down there in 2015. I mean, you're looking at a troop of Marines now, and they all look like the local rugby team. They're all massive guys, you know, and like they've obviously had educationally they're a lot brighter than they would be. But the Commando ethos is very, very important. So, you know, whether you're going to slither behind a sentry on, you know, in the Second World War, or you're going to be super infantry and you're going to be that bit more robust, you know, than a normal soldier because you've had more training. It's still the training's still valid, you know. And the unarmed combat training, they still do knife training, they still do knife disarms, they still do sentry takedown, because it's like everything else. If you thought about the skill, then you wouldn't want to do it. It's like pressing the trigger on a rifle. Okay, you don't press a trigger on a rifle thinking I'm going to kill that man. You know, I'm going to really enjoy this. You're looking at a figure 11 target. You're not looking at a person. You're looking at a target. You know, and like when we train people to do knives, you show them the right way to do it, but you do it a lot. You know, so it becomes instinctive. You know, so the guy knows how to do it, so he doesn't have to think about doing it when he does it. Okay. And I know that sounds quite still. It's like everything else in the military. You teach a skill. It's repetition, 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 muscle memory, you know. It's like parrying a punch. It's like stopping a kick. It's like doing this. You only do it through practice. And what we needed to develop was something where you didn't have to disappear to a Shaolin monastery for 10 years to learn. Okay? Because I think, yeah, that's right. It's functional. And I think a guy now does 32 lessons of unarmed combat when he's in the latter halves of part of training, and the guys probably do more now than they've ever done. Okay, and that's because, you know, when I was in 4-5 in 1974, I mean, you know, half of the unit come from Glasgow, and they were all great blokes, but really they'd been scrapping since they grew up. You know, and the other half of the unit come from places like I came from, South London or Birmingham, or places like that, where, you know, or pit villages, you know, in Wales, where, you know, scrapping was just part of their nature. And we were a different animal then. You know, the Corps was different then. You know, it recruited in different way, different people. Now, I think the average Royal Marine troop has got, you know, 60% are educationally qualified for officer, you know, if they wanted to, you know. Yeah. But guess what? They don't want to. They just want to be bootnecks, you know. So I'm glad I did it. And, you know, if a young person said to me, you know, what do you think? You know, I would go, yeah, go for it, mate, because at the end of the day, it's great spiritual body armor for the rest of your life. Because if you have been cold or you have been hungry, you know, you had all the fucking adverse effects of commando training, and then you go to a unit and you find out what it really is to be hard, you know, Norway, jungle, that sort of stuff. You know, when you're sitting at home watching Netflix because, you know, you're locked in with COVID-19, it's not that much of a fucking problem, to be honest, you know. No. I'm coping okay. You know, I'm coping okay.
Bernie, let's go back, because I'm fascinated about you train the SBS.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic time in my life. Now, I must admit that of all the organisations, well, no, I can't really say that. can't really say that because it's all different in some ways. But the thing about what people have got to understand about the SBS, it's these guys, okay, are the cream of the corps, okay. Well, actually, they're the cream of the services now because it's combined, you know. So you don't have to be a Royal Marine to be an SBS guy. But what I found different to them than other SF that I've worked with is that they've got a sense of humour, and B, they're quite happy about doing what they're doing, you know. So it makes for a great atmosphere. So like Paul would be 6 o'clock PT, everybody together, hours PT from the CO downwards. There was teamwork. There was all the things that you think that are great in the military. And I actually got offered the job by a guy, the CO at the time, and I got a phone call. I was a PSI, permanent staff instructor at RMR Bristol. I got myself a really good number, and the phone went one day, and guy on the other end of the phone is, hello. He said, "Colour Sergeant Plunkett." I said, yeah. And he said, we'd been having a lot of wind-ups, you know. And he said, from Special Boat Service, he said, I'd like you, can we talk? And I'm thinking, oh, fuck it, this is a wind-up, right? So he said, I'd like you to come down, he said, for a couple of weeks. And I'd heard your name from the CO at Limpston and all the rest of it. And I just went, fuck off. No, I got a phone back from the RSM who was a mate of mine. He said, "You've just told the CO to fuck off." So anyway, went down, done this 2-week course, and at the end of it, I had sort of specific parameters. At the time, it was for M Squadron, and M Squadron were the MCT specialists. They were the guys that were roping down and doing all that. And it just turned into the Special Boat Service. It used to be the Special Boat Squadron. So there wasn't enough operators to operate. So what used to happen was they'd get guys that were like super bootnecks, if you like, you know, young lads who were super keen. They'd done selection, but not the SBS selection. And they become what you call the Black Troop. And they were like the QRF guys, a bit like the FSB is now, you know, for our guys.
What's that FSB?
FSG, Field Support Group.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're guys from Paras and Marines who go and support the Special Boat Service, Special Air Boat Service. They're their cordons. They're the guys that give them their extra firepower, if you like. Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm using acronyms, and
no, it's okay.
Because you understand, I'm thinking the other people won't, obviously. So that was the equivalent. So I went down there. And done this thing for 2 weeks, and basically the CO said, I want a system, you know, where it's got to range from unarmed combat, you know, for C Squadron guys, for knives and all the rest of it, right up to a guy who's going to be in 60 pounds of body armor, because it's the old body armor. In black kit, respirator. He's got to be able to keep hold of his weapon. He's got to be able to do this. He's got to be able to do that. He's got to be able to take somebody down very quickly, you know, a panicking hostage or a bad guy or whatever, you know. So I worked on a system, and we come up with it, and we done a demonstration, and he loved it. And I was getting ready to go back to Bristol the next day. He said, listen, he said, I was coming up for a draft anyway. He said, what are you doing next week? And I said, well, I'd love to stay. He said, well, what about staying for a couple of years? so I ended up there for the best part of 2 years. And it was a brilliant time in my life. It was a brilliant time in my life. Great bunch of guys to work with. Fun, real fun, you know, like just every day you got up and something different was going on. I was part of a thing called Counter-Terrorist Wing, which was 8 of us sitting around in 2 sort of porter cabin things, you know, and we used to run the training for the unit, and so, you know, if it was a break-in training, the guy or something, what are we doing today? I don't know. Let's get a helicopter in and do some helicopter sniping, or well, let's get on the range. How many rounds we got there? We got 4,000. Let's go and do some room combat. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know, and like 2-3 lots of fizz a day. You know, and then we used to get to test the kit as well. You know, we got these things. You know, they're these trike things. You know, what's the word I'm looking for, Chris? You know, the
quad bike sort of things.
Quad bike, yeah. The quad bikes when they first come out, the military quad bikes. Like, can you test these? Yeah. So just going everywhere in a quad bike, you know. It was just a brilliant time. Great guys, and funny enough, like you know, they're the guys I ended up working with when I left the Corps, you know. So it was great for me.
Did you get to meet any of the Navy SEALs while you did that job?
Yeah, I actually took. We went up to Machrihanish and worked with SEAL Team 2. Great bunch of guys. I went up there with a mate of mine called Gav. We had a great time. They really looked after us. And then we had a visit from SEAL Team 6. We had 8 blokes from SEAL Team 6 who stayed with us for a couple of months. And I actually, you know, just great, actually taking them guys for unarmed combat, because they're big dudes, mate. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
what they do seem like big old guys, those Americans.
They are. I mean, some of them aren't. That's no. You know, some are, some aren't, but they are very, very fit lads, and they tend to be sort of big rugby, sort of American football type guys. You know, I don't know. It's just what they are, really. But great blokes. I mean, brilliant sense of humours and stuff like that. And then I'd be taking these guys for unarmed combat, you know.
Mm.
And you had to get your demonstrations right, you know. So, you know, pistol disarms, you know, the guy would go, I don't see how that works. Well, okay, I'll show you. And then it'd go, fucking, that's brilliant, you know. And they were really nice fellas, you know.
How did they compare, Bernie, to the Navy SEALs is often referred to as kind of the American version of our SBS.
Yes, yeah, it is, and it's very similar. They do similar jobs, they'll do exactly very similar jobs to our guys. The American SF is huge compared to our SF. You know, they've got guys on the fleet. They've got forward-mounted SEAL teams. You know, to do various jobs off various ships. They're a very swept-up organisation, and their training is very hard. And they cross-train with our guys all the time. So,
what sort of stuff would they do, Benny? Can you give us some examples? Because I think people would be fascinated in this.
Yeah.
Diving.
Well, yeah. I mean, they would go from a small boat, you know, with rebreather stuff, so it doesn't give you any bubbles or whatever, and they'll plot a way into a cove or a beach. They'd come up, you know, they'd have they'll cache their weapons, they cache their stuff. They go in, they do an insertion, do their task, and then they might get you know picked up by a helicopter, you know, 2 days later, 3 days later, you know. I mean, like Afghanistan, Iraq were places where their skills are absolutely unbelievable in changing the dynamics of that, especially against Al Qaeda. I mean, you used to have when I was in Iraq doing the intelligence job. There was a place outside Baghdad where they had a thing. And had a bunker where all the SF worked from. It was called Task Force Black. And Task Force Black was US SEALs, Delta, Aussie SAS, Kiwi SAS, our SBS, our SAS, and they were just going out every night, and it was like, it was industrial scale raids. You know, these guys could do 2 a night, you know, and then to get debriefed, come in and get the intelligence packs, you know, ready for the next strike the next day. I mean, that's how a lot of these top targets were taken down. You know, actually the middle management and the upper management of Al Qaeda disappeared within a 6-week period. You know, that sort of features in the, you know, when I write, I concentrate on things that happened. You know, basing it in fact. Okay, basing it in a situation where it's readable. I read a lot, and I read a lot of sort of military adventure type fiction and stuff like that. Some of it's absolute shit, you know, because you know it would never happen, and you know it's in some fictional country somewhere, you know. But so everything has got to be, you know, as far as I'm concerned, when I write a book, I like to write a book that I would like to read, you know, with some proper stuff about the proper weapons and the proper tactics, and, you know, based in a place where, you know, this stuff was really going on, you know. Yeah, that time was a very, very fascinating time, and that was like when the SF really came into their own. You know, every part of it, every nation, SF were doing exactly what they were trained to do.
What did you say that operation was called? Black?
Task Force Black.
Task Force Black. And
Task Force Black.
Again, because I know people are fascinated in this sort of thing, Bernie, how then, in that arena, do your SAS and Delta Force kind of operators, how do they fit into this equation? And the other regiments that I probably haven't mentioned.
That basically everything was run from the Americans, really, and what would happen is guys would be in their 12 man groups, depending on the size of a unit. So it's different than a SEAL team is different than a troop of SAS guys, you know, whatever. Troop of SAS guys can vary, you know, depending on what they're doing, what rotations they're doing, or whatever. But say look, let's put it in our perspective. You know, if you had your section, you had your 8 guys, okay, yeah, then you would go from one mission to another. So you'd either be prepping, getting ready to go out, prepping your weapons to go out, getting briefed up on the target, getting ready to go out on the pad at night, coming back the next day, smashing a place, you know, and that was a generic word for it, you know, taking a target down, coming back. You've got the prisoners, you've got the information, or you've got, you know, you've had to kill them, so you come back in again, and that information then was taken by the intelligence specialists, and the intelligence specialists would work out the next intelligence pack for the next operation. And then other things would feed into that. So, you know, human, like the unit that I worked for in a previous time, would be gathering that information through informers, through spies. They'd be getting their leads. Them spies are being debriefed. Reports will be written. They'll be compared to other bits of what we call the intelligence cycle. You know, stuff like tech-in. You know, what goes on phones and internets and shit like that.
Yeah, okay.
Everything is cross-referenced, and if that target is a target, it gets hit. You know.
I heard that I saw a message the other day. Someone wrote that the US Rangers took out more of the targets in the Middle East than any other unit. Does that?
Yeah, well, it might be, because the Rangers have got this again, this backup thing for the SF. Some of them guys are incredibly young as well, but they're the equivalent of our commando units, mate. Basically, you know, they're just young. They're super troopers. Basically, they're guys that are immensely fit. They do a very, very hard selection. A lot of people don't know this, of course, but the US Rangers trained at Aknakari during the Second World War as well. You know, so some of these big raids, like 2nd Ranger Battalion, you know, on the cliffs at Hack, whatever. Okay, they trained at Aknakari. You know, they trained in our tactics, and we've still got this close affinity with the Rangers. You know, so it's pretty good actually for an ex-Marine, because you've got this affinity with the US Marines that I love, and you also got this other affinity like with the US Rangers, who are basically not that different than you are, you know. So it was all good. Especially I was working with the US Army and US Marines.
Wow. Gosh.
I think the idea of a body count is a bit Vietnam, isn't it? You know, it's like I've got that. You know, somebody killed more people than the other person or whatever.
Well, it's also extremely controversial, because you have the likes of Ben Griffin, former SAS, saying that the Americans would come back having killed X amount of people during their raids. The British SS would come back and go, we just didn't. It wasn't like that. The targets that we'd been sent, they either weren't players, or that, you know, so they were innocent, or they weren't in the house we were sent to. They just came back pretty much most nights, from what I understand watching Ben's speeches, with, you know, it's just the boys come back still with their weapons all fully loaded and not a round spent.
Well, that shows remarkable restraint. In some ways, but I think every target's different. You know, every target's different, and you can't really, because it's not like you haven't got this this datum line like an academic datum line. You know, what target is. You know, okay, there's 20 average houses. They've got so much bad guys in there. So much. Everything's different, and the way people react on the target's going to be different. I don't think our guys. Whether they SAS, SBS, you know, Aussie SAS, fucked around at all, you know. I mean, the idea was, you know, take out the bad guys, gather the intelligence and get back. Now, I would like to think that if I went into a room, you know, one of the things I've done was room combat. You know, I'm an instructor in that from my time at Paul, so I understand your perceptions. You know, if you've got a crash flash grenade's just gone off, you know, and you're the first one in the door, you're more likely to press a trigger than anything else.
Yeah,
I assure you.
So
okay,
just to clarify there for our listeners and watchers, you've trained people in this at Poole, which is where our special forces, our special boat service trains. So you know a lot about this.
Yeah. I mean, room combat basically is getting into a room and clearing a room or killing the bad guys. You know, and people, these guys, you know, you talk about your mate Ollie and all that. They do it until it's second nature. They're ninjas at it, mate. Okay. I mean, my troop, like the Black Troop, would go through the ranges at Garabak, you know, which was the SAS Rangers at the time, and guys say, "Who the fuck are them? They're brilliant." I say, "That's my troop," because that's all they done. You know, they've done that for 6 hours a day. You know, they're either on the range doing unarmed combat, you know, parachuting, jumping out of aircraft, doing all this stuff. That was their job. You know, roping down all the time and stuff like that. That was their job. The guys who are the operators in the SAS and the SBS and the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, they are the fucking supreme beings as far as as weapons are concerned. You know, they are ninjas. They are absolutely, it's second nature to them, as it was to me when I was doing it, you know. But obviously, like, you get a bit of skill fade after a while, I should imagine, you know. But these guys were just doing that all the time, you know. And I think that's why there's one thing coming through a situation, coming through a battle. Okay, so guys in the Falklands, you know, they come through battles. They've got all their scars to do with that battle, whether it mental or physical or whatever, you know. That's it. And I think that's a difference between being that frontline super infantry type guy and being a guy in that situation from Special Boat Service, Special Air Service, you know, where they've got to do that every night. Okay, they do that every night. It's just a job to them. Okay, now if they thought about it, it would crack them up. So they have, you know, come back, have a can of beer, get their heads down, prep for the next job. They go and do it. They got their friends around them. They get their. That's how they get through it, you know. But you know, I just think the strain of that from that Task Force Black time was just immense, you know, and of course a lot of casualties, you know, a lot of SF blokes got injured.
It's interesting. I'm talking with a former SAS wife at the moment, and she's kind of, we're debating whether to come on the podcast. Probably because it would upset a lot of people if they knew the truth about what goes on back in, let's say, Hereford, with the broken marriages, the alcoholism, the high suicide rate that's kind of predominant throughout the whole of the forces at the veterans community at the moment.
Yeah, I actually concur with that, and I think you know, I think there are problems. I had problems in my marriage, mate. To be honest, you know, I've had some, you know, horrendous. The thing is, you're never the same person when you get back from doing something, you know. So I've had this long discussion about you know, PTSD and all the rest of it, you know. Well, I'm in a slightly unique position because, you know, all mine was sort of self-induced, you know, whereas I done it A because I liked it, and B because I was getting paid a lot of money for it, you know. So if I was looking after a news team in Baghdad, you know, and there was a contact, you know, and I got them away, you know, I didn't sort of go back and sweat it and worry about it, because I know I'd probably have to do it the next day anyway, you know. Any trauma that I've gathered through my life, through working as a contractor, you know, either for myself or for the US military, you know, I suck that up, mate. You know, I don't complain to people about it, because guess what, you know, yeah, I was in Afghanistan, and I was under some of the same pressures that the British Army were there. Okay, so you know, I was there for 6 months with 4-5 Commando, and you know, I sort of rubbed along really well with them. But the difference is, them guys were going out, you know, on patrol every day. You know, first unit I went to Afghanistan with, who was there at the time, was 40 Commando, and they were down at Sangin. Okay.
And what was can you say for our friends listening what your role was?
It was to do with the gathering of intelligence and using that intelligence to save our guys, basically, you know.
Okay.
Sangin wasn't my town, but you know, the guy that was the Sangin guy was a mate of mine. So and we were a pretty tight bunch of guys as well, mainly ex you know, agent handlers from the British Army. So stroke Marines. So, you know, that guy would come back now, you know, I'll be chatting to my mate from Sangin. I was at Nadi Ali, and he'd say, fucking guys are getting smashed. You know, I don't know, it just can't go on, you know. And you'd be talking to the guys and come back from Sangin, and you know, probably 60 guys there, you know, and they had 10 killed and maybe another 15, 20 injured. You imagine 60 blokes and half that's two sort of Second World War casualty rates, isn't it? You know, guess what? The guys just cracked on. You know, they just got their job done. Come back, done a tour, and they were out on another one before 5. You know, later on. So, yeah, I've greatest respect for these guys. And the other thing that really pisses me off sometimes is people, old Marines, who say, you know, it was a lot harder when I was in. How many times have you heard that? Do you know?
Yeah. Obviously, without compromising yourself or anybody else, are you able to? You're using some terms here that I'm aware our listeners might struggle with, as I did when I started this podcast. Things like I had to be told what an agent handler actually was. I mean, I've been in Northern Ireland, obviously, so I kind of think I know what these terms mean. But are you able to outline what your various roles have been in intelligence? What is there a name? You know, what the names are for that and what the job entailed?
Yeah, I can do. It's all open source information anyway. So you know, if you got on Wikipedia and you Googled FRU, FRU, Force Research Unit, that was one of. I mean, basically, that was a unit I joined when I first went to Northern Ireland. And what that does is you go away, you do specialist training, very specialist training. You do the same sort of thing that you know, a special forces guy would do to a certain extent, in as much as you do an awful lot of well, the SAS guys run that side, the training. So, you know, you do a lot of CQB, a lot of close quarter battle, a lot of unarmed combat, a lot of using a pistol, primarily a pistol and stuff like that. You learn how to you learn all the skills without going into too much detail for an agent handler, somebody who's going to run a source within a terrorist organization. It's all about human reaction. It's all about people handling skills, you know, in normal society. You know, I mean, you've got this guy that you're meeting who has been recruited. Maybe you recruited him, maybe you haven't, and he's inside this terrorist organization, so he's shitting himself. Okay, excuse my French. You know, he's got to go and meet you. He's got to pass certain stuff to you, and not all of them do it for the money. You know, money is something that's a byproduct there, but a lot of them are just sick of being used and you know, inside these terrorist organizations and having to do stuff that they don't want to do. They're normal. A lot of them are nice people. Yeah, some of them I met have been like squaddies. They're like you know, they've got that same sort of group think that you would have, and you get on really well with them. So you've got a certain amount of time. You've got to pick them up covertly. You've got to take them away. You've got to debrief them. You've got to ask all the right questions. You've got to then produce a report that goes into a system that's filtered and checked against other sources that saves lives. Okay, and that's civilian lives, soldiers' lives, livelihoods, lives. You know, such and such a place is going to get bombed, or there's going to be a mortar attack against Nuri police station, or, you know, all sorts of stuff like that.
How do you? I would just say, I mean, what if they're a double agent?
No, because there's certain checks and balances that we employ. That's not going to happen. Okay, it's not like it's not like some of these fascinating stories from the Second World War. Have you heard about Agent Zigzag?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, this guy who was a criminal, you know, banged up in you know, the Channel Islands. You know, the Germans get him to work for him. He goes and he does a great job, and they think he's doing a brilliant job, but he's working for MI5 because he's given himself up. So he's the only guy at the end of the war that gets an Iron Cross from Hitler and an MBE from the Queen. What a fascinating story. Now, it doesn't happen like that because people are checked out. They're recruited for certain things. A lot of people are doing it for various reasons that aren't just about the money. Some of it is about the money, okay, but they do it for other reasons as well. So you take that basic template, you know, which is the British Army agent handling template, and you know, and it's worked all over the place. You know, you're talking about Kosovo. You know, it was working there. It was working in Bosnia. It was working, you know, in Iraq. It was working in Afghanistan. You know, everywhere we put troops, you know, lives on the line, there will be people there who are trying to gather the information, gather that intelligence, gather information to turn into intelligence to protect their people. And that's all it is. You know, there's nothing political about it. There's nothing.
I guess when you have a source like that, they're genuine to a certain degree. They could always be plants, I suppose, but I guess we think through our 70s television, we think of grasses, don't we? That they're doing it sort of to get off a prison sentence, or there are various motivating factors why somebody would be a source, but its actual fact is picking up the motivating factors, you know, because part of the job is recruiting people as sources, you know. So, you know, you need motivating factors. You need this, you need to look behind what, you know, this guy has got problems with debt, or this guy is having a run-in with such and such a person, or, you know, he's in a bad position at the moment. I wonder if he needs any money. There's loads of different ways that you could actually, you know, go about recruiting a source. But once people are running, it's really weird. It's a bit like anything where there's a not close bond, that'd be wrong. Where there's good relationships between people, these people can become team players, you know. So he's really wanting to do his best in the team he's in, rather than the team he's working against, you know. And we've seen that in Northern Ireland with the old steak knife saga, you know. So there's a guy there who I'm not going to go into talking about him because it's a bit contentious. You know, basically, you know, a guy that had been inside the Provisional IRA as their security bloke, okay, yeah. So he was the guy that looked after their security, but he'd been running as an agent for the British Army for 30 years. Yeah. Oh, I think
what people don't understand is if they could look through some of the information that guy, he's saved hundreds of lives, but that's never mentioned. You know, the fact that you know, he actually, you know, saved loads of people's lives. That's never mentioned. You know, because that's why he was doing it, basically. You know. He was doing it for lots of different reasons. There's always more than one motivating factor.
There's some interesting kind of intel that's come out in recent years about how the IRA actually was managed, isn't there? And I think I think some of these guys would be quite surprised if they knew who ultimately were controlling them.
Yeah, the thing about the RA is like it's like any other group of people. You know, any group of people is a biological mechanism, isn't it? You know, it's to do with people, groups of people, and you know, some of them are in there for different reasons. Everyone's got their own motivating factor why they want to be in that organisation. And some of them don't want to be in that organisation, okay? But this is the thing. The reason Northern Ireland conflict finished, and there's loads of books that you can read reference this. But one of the reasons it finished is because the IRA didn't know what was compromised and what wasn't. Nobody could guarantee putting a job together that would work. You know? And when things started going wrong for them in traditional areas like Tyrone and Crossmaglen and, you know, South Armagh, that's when they had to really think, look, this is not going our way. We need to try and get something out of this. So that's what got the peace process going. You know, it was nothing else to do with, you know, body counts or, you know, blowing up this or doing the other. You know, it was about the fact that they couldn't put a fucking job together, you know, unless somebody knew about it. You know, and that was people.
What did we call? We called them touts, didn't we? Was that the thing?
Yeah, we call them touts. Yeah, not very. That was the IRA called them touts. That's an IRA word. We call them Brussels because Brussels sprout rhymes with tout.
Okay. It gets such a complex weave of gameplay, though, doesn't it? Because there must have been jobs that the British, let's just say MOD as an umbrella term, allowed to go ahead in Northern Ireland, knowing people were going to get killed, but maybe it was kind of a control.
No, I would say now, and I would say 100% on my heart, swear to you as a friend, swear on my mother. Well, I can't mother's life; she's dead. Children's life, okay. Everything that was done when I was doing that job, and everybody I knew doing that job, it was about saving human life. Okay, right. So, hypothetical situation here. All right, your source comes in, your agent comes in, and he says, right, we are going to attack. Okay, let's put it in a. You know, let's just say it's Strand Road Police Station, Belfast. Okay, I'm going to be with these people. I'm going to be driving this car. Okay, we're picking the car up here. Okay, the bomb's getting loaded on here. Okay, and then we're going to drive from there to there, and then we're going to bomb that police station, and it's going to happen at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Okay, so you know exactly when it's going to happen. Now, there's only that guy and 3 other blokes that know that. Yeah. So if anything goes wrong, okay, where any of them guys, if they get ambushed, okay, and all 4 of them die, okay, you might get away with that. Okay, one guy doesn't. Okay, he goes then, and all of a sudden he knows that was a tout somewhere. Okay, and it was one of those people, because it's circle of knowledge is only 4 people. So what does a guy in my position do? You stop it the other way. Okay, you make sure that there's unusual police activity around, or you declare a bomb alert on the street down the road that we're going to drive up, or you do something that they won't know that you prevented it. Okay, but you prevented it, and you've preserved your sources, the integrity of your source, so he can keep telling you when things are going to go wrong in the future.
Yeah,
you know, this idea that
could there be a situation, buddy, where, let's just say there's a job here where they're going to take out 3 people in a pub bomb or something, or shooting, but that tout is also linked to this job here where it's going to be a massive bomb in a shopping centre that's going to kill possibly 50, 70 people, where this job has to be allowed to go ahead, because to stop it would, like you say, expose this.
You know, I don't think that's ever happened. You know, I'm only talking about my time. Okay, there, and I'm talking about not only in Northern Ireland, but I'm talking about in Afghanistan. I'm talking about in Iraq. Okay.
Yeah.
The most important thing is preserving human life. Okay, and you should never have to make the choice between 3 or 50 or whatever. The minute the 3 comes up, then you prevent that. But you want to keep your source running because he's saving lives, so you don't want to compromise him either. But there's various ways that you can use to not compromise him. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, terrorist organizations, people talk about terrorist organizations as if they're like Spectre, you know, James Bond Spectre, you know, like guys, you know, plotting away. They're not. They're normal human beings. So, I mean, I've had some real funny things, you know, with the agent handling scene, you know, where, you know, right, the guy, this thing didn't happen, okay? You know, guy phoned you up and said, look, there was going to be a mortar attack, but it's not going to happen now. Why is that? Oh, so-and-so lost the keys to the lorry. Yeah. Or we were driving there and there was not enough petrol and we couldn't fucking fill it up. Or so-and-so's gone on holiday down south because he just got married, you know, and he was a guy that was supposed to zero the Barrett, you know, just fucking weird things that people wouldn't even think about because, you know, terrorists are human beings as well, you know, they're sometimes warped, you know, but we're not dealing with the ideologies that we do with, you know, Al-Qaeda or fucking ISIS or whatever, you know. These guys try and live as normal a life as they can, you know, they've got kids, they've got families, they live in communities, they do stuff. And they're the bad guys, you know. So, yeah, it's fascinating. In fact, it's more fascinating than the James Bond thing to me.
Yeah, it gets interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I stopped a guy in the Ardoyne, so hardcore Republican area.
Yeah.
He's English. He's from like like Norwich or something, right? And
yeah.
And here's the thing: something just tells you this is not right. I mean, you are hated. I'm talking back then, and you know, make no claims about now, but back then, you know, you are hated in that area. You are not. If you walked into it, you would disappear within 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And no one would ever hear about, or you might turn up a dead body on a country road.
Yeah.
So I'm there, you know, chatting to this guy. You're English, oh, okay. And we used to do this. I won't say the acronym, but we used to do this check over the radio, obviously, to the intelligence services or to the police, and it would come back and tell you whether they were suspected of IRA activity or another organisation's activity. And this guy comes back, yes, he is. So then you're like, right, this is how he's managed to live this long in this area, is he's involved in this. I mean, there was one situation where we got this guy, I don't want to like give too much details away, I don't want to compromise, but he'd left a bong out in his front room and a load of weed, right? And we were doing searches for command wires, so the wires that can be laid years in advance, literally years in advance of detonating a bomb. That wire can be put in someone's garden. They don't know. They've got no idea about it. It can be run up a drain pipe, and it you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Bernie, but so we're looking for them. This guy's got all this paraphernalia in his front room. Back then, you know, you're young, quite naive. You're looking just to get an arrest all the time, or to get to do something for your unit, you know. So of course, this poor guy got hammered for just smoking a bit of weed, which to us is like nothing in this country. But of course, you're then at risk of getting kneecapped by the provost, by the IRA, because on the one hand, their public faces as they're controlling the area of drugs. On the other side of the fence, they're bringing all the drugs, allegedly, we're bringing all the drugs into Belfast. In fact, some of our...
it's amazing. I mean, I was there actually at that time, and I'm sure it still goes on now, because you know, the IRA, you know, like Jerry Adams said, hasn't gone away. It's transmuted. It's become a criminal organisation rather than political organisations, but the same fuckers are running the same scams, doing the same stuff. You know, they run all the pornography, they run all the bits and bobs, the illegal drinking clubs, and it's the same people. They just, you know, they can't justify it anymore, and they do big on deals with the paramilitaries, you know, and they'll meet up and they'll chat about, you know, well, we're bringing this stuff in from Holland. Do you want to go half on, you know, how much it costs or whatever, you know? So it sort of pisses me off in a way, because, you know, people think that it's all hunky dory now. It's not. It's, you know, Belfast is not hunky dory at all. I think the generation that's growing up now is less bitter than the generation before, and that's my only hope. And you can go to you can have a great night out in Belfast, you know, really, as long as you go into a sort of free fire zone where everybody doesn't talk about politics, you know. So you go down the city centre, Cathedral Quarter, you can chat away, you know, nobody brings up politics, nobody cares, nobody gives a shit whether you're English or whatever, you know, nobody cares really. But, you know, I wouldn't be able to go down the Felons Bar in fucking West Belfast and order a pint, you know.
No, it's not got that far. It's not got that.
Ain't gonna happen. You know.
The hatred there when I was there on both sides. Yeah. This is not.
Oh, it's visceral. And no. People, you know, don't understand the visceral hatred that people had of security forces in general. For good reasons sometimes, to be honest, you know. I mean, like I mean, in the Corps, we were our own worst enemies sometimes, mate. To be honest, you know, because you you did rule the rod of Ireland. When I was a corporal in 4-1 Commando, and I had my own multiple and a Saracen armoured car, that was my town, you know. I didn't want anybody else in that town, you know. And we were hard on the players, especially, you know, players as in IRA guys, because that they would just get fucking beaten up. Basically, they'll get abused.
We would have, you know, we were all guilty of that. I mean, it gets hard.
Yeah.
We stopped the guy, or one of our teams stopped the guy that shot the guy behind me 3 times. Right?
Yeah.
So we were on patrol.
Yeah.
Jock, as he's referred to in my book, was hit 3 times. And of course, you know who's the fight, because like you say, there's so much, so many touts and intelligence. Someone goes, oh, that I'm not even going to say the guy's name, but I remember it like it's yesterday. Oh, that was so, you know, Seamus so-and-so, right? So you know who it is. You also know that they now happen to be trying to walk down a pavement past you, or let's just say in a, you know, proverbial dark alley. And, you know, what are you supposed to do when you're 19 years old and this is the guy that's just, right? And I make no judgment on any of that. I'm in no position to say what is right, what is wrong, what it should be in this country or that. I don't even know sometimes the correct terminology to use, because I'm not out to offend anyone. I don't think it helps, but what I do think helps is communication and talk. And if the way some of us behaved in Northern Ireland, it wasn't going to there couldn't have been any.
It wouldn't endear you to anybody. No, I totally agree with you there, mate. I mean, like, I was one of the worst offenders, to be honest. But, you know, guess what? You know, everything comes to an end. Okay, and I was always very, very careful about my security and saying what I'd done and what I didn't do and all the rest of it. You know, and I remember I live in Northern Ireland a lot, Marty, and but since the ceasefire and since everything, I don't see why I can't go and you know, go to a Remembrance Day parade, you know, in Belfast, wearing my beret and my medals, because I don't give a shit what they think, to be honest. Okay, I don't care about them. They don't care about me. You know, one thing I would say is that for young people who are subjected to terrorism, to operating against a terrorist organisation, you know, whether it be in West Belfast or Crossmaglen or whatever. What civilians don't understand is the hate that's there, okay? It's not to do with politics. You don't give a shit what their politics is, really. You know, I used to talk to IRA people and say, look, we got more fucking unemployed in our country than you've got in your country, you know. I didn't have any axe to grind with what they done. The only thing was they were trying to kill me, okay, and my friends. And because of that, and because you hate them, and they hate you, and it's a real visceral, horrible hate. You know, when you're spat at, and you know you're abused and everything, you know, and you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not espousing that, you know, should be able to burn villages down and rape and pillage, you know what I mean? But people do react, you know, and they expect a certain amount of reaction, to be honest, you know, and they got probably the guys that done worse in them situations were people that tried to understand the local population, rather than people who just, right, let's make it very difficult for them to come and target us. Every time they pitch up somewhere, we'll stop them, we'll search them, we'll take their cars apart, we'll take the wheels off their cars, we'll just be complete arseholes to them. And eventually they don't come into town, and if they don't come into town, they can't target you. And it worked.
I'll tell you a funny little story. We're on one of the famous roads in Belfast, and the big thing during our tour was we kept getting mortared.
Yeah.
When the mortar alarm goes off, you've got to grab your flak jacket, just pull it over the top of you, and get under a bed or whatever, and you lie there all giggling like blooming school children, waiting for the bangs to go off. So when they're fired, there's a bang. The sentry raises the alarm on his radio, so sentry around the camp. The guard commander then puts the mortar alarm on. You will get under your beds, and then you've got to wait for the bang. Where is this thing gonna? Is it gonna land on me? Am I gonna be dead? I'll be honest. I know people say you're supposed to be scared. I've said this a few. I never was. For me,
no.
it was all just incredibly good fun, which is the wrong thing about war. It's why young men keep joining up.
One time when I was doing that job, because I was working out of South Omar, I was the most mortared person in the British forces.
So yeah. I stopped this vehicle, Bernie, right?
Yeah.
And in the back, there's a sheet obviously covering something up, right? Mm. So I said, sir, you know, driver's license or ID, I can't remember what it was. And I'm looking at it. So, could you open your boot, please, sir? And the guy just like opened his boot, and as he was standing there, I'm not realizing he's still praying I'm not going to lift this sheet up, as if I'm not going to, you know. He lifts the boot up and he stands there like that. I threw back this sheet. Oh my God. It's a mortar base plate. Mortar tubes. There's 6 black tubes, metal tubes, all welded up in iron, pointing up like that. And I just turned around and I said to my brick commander, smudge over here, mate. And he was chatting to another civilian on the street, and he looked over, he went, 1 minute, Chris. I said, smudge, just come here now. And he went, huh, what have you found, a mortar base plate? And I went, yeah. And I'm like, I've got my hand on this guy, like, mate, you're fucking not moving. And he is clearly not moving, right?
Yeah.
And as like Smudge comes over, this guy goes, it's a firework display. And I'm like, oh yeah, pulled it up. He said, no, I do firework displays. I cover it up because I'm always getting stopped. I'm like, mate, you nearly got killed. You know, it was like, if the guy had decided to like run away, I mean, he didn't, thank God, it would have been like, oh, that's your, you know, that's just like, is he going to operate? Is he going to pull the plug on, you know, push the trigger on this thing?
Yeah.
It was, so yeah, so that was a lot of funny. I won't talk over you, Bernie, but I'll tell people the story once of how we're patrolling along in Belfast, and there's a bear, big fucking grizzly or something, there, standing on a log. That it's like we're saying, only in the Marines do you have these bizarre situations that, you know.
Yeah, but that, I mean, you know, I look back on all that, and I just think that it's been a great experience, you know. And I wouldn't like to be anyone else, to be honest. You know, I could do with being a good bit richer, you know. I need this film to take off. I need the books to get sold a bit. So but, apart from that, I'm going to be all right.
Let's talk about your artistry then. So you've written several books, according to Marty. And did you?
Yeah. I'm.
The film. So
it's there's a film in the offing. You know, Martin's working on it with me. It's called A Shadowing of Angels. My central character is a bit different. She's a female special forces soldier. You know, hard as nails, beautiful looking. You know, she's a bit of a female James Bond type, I must admit. But then she, the first book really is when she's she leaves the army under a cloud, ambushing. Helmand goes wrong. She's sort of blamed for it. Then she joins the what we call the circuit in London. They are the military contractors. You know, I was on the circuit, military contractors that do jobs all over the world. And they get the job to release an American hostage that's been seized by ISIS. So that was the first book. Second book is the second part of the trilogy, A Falling of Angels, which is now out as well. And the third book I'm working on at the moment. It's sort of, it's like when you start writing a book, you sort of know how it's going to start, you sort of know how it finishes. And some authors, as you probably yourself, you know, you plot out what you're going to write. I start like that, but it never quite works out. So yeah, I totally enjoy it. I find it very cathartic as well. So all these things that are happening in my book are based on fact in a way, you know, not, you know, it's factual. So when you see a room combat, how somebody goes into a room, that's the way it happens. When you talk about the door charge or you to do it, it happens. When you talk about the weapons, they are there. The tactics are there. When you're talking about, because a lot of it's to do with agent handling, the agent handling techniques, the debrief techniques, and all the rest of it are there. That's what happens. So it gives somebody an insight into a different world, you know, and I think every book should do that. I mean, you know, I used to love Tolkien when I was a kid, you know, and just, you know, Lord of the Rings just took me to somewhere else, you know, it just took me out of my shitty little council house in South London. So I think books should do that. You should be absorbed in them. You should take you somewhere different, somewhere you don't know, and maybe learn a bit about, you know, sort of the way these things work, you know, because, you know, else you live life through this prism of Jason Bourne, you know, James Bond, and, you know, it's not real life, you know, it's not real life. It'd be great if it was, you know. I'd like to be driving around Aston Martin and all the rest of it, but fuck's sakes, you know, don't happen. You know, the most beat up car is the best one when you're source handling.
So Bernie, we should. What's your author name?
It's W.T.Delaney.
Okay.
A Shadowing of Angels by W.T.Delaney. A Falling of Angels. Can I just show the book?
Hey. This is your show, mate. You show what you like.
There it is there. It's a very reasonable price. I'm not sure what it is anyway. But it's a good read. It's had some great reviews and people love it. It's just trying to get myself organised. As we talked about, Chris, I'm sort of a different generation than you, and I find it very hard to use this sort of media, you know, to get my points of view, or to get to sell my wares, for want of a better word, you know. But I love getting, you know, comments back from people. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. I read it in 2 days or stuff like that. So I find that gives me a boost as well, you know.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after, because as I said, it's the podcast, the whole podcasting thing has really been good for certain individuals and certain businesses. It won't work. It won't work for everyone. You've got to have a certain aspect to your character that makes you want people want to listen to you, you know?
Yeah.
I'll see other people, and then you've also got to sort of be able to put it across, right? Guess what I'm trying to say. There's other podcasters out there that have way what you'd say high caliber guests than me, right?
Yeah.
That's a real shitty thing in itself, because I mean, I've got the likes of yourself, Bernie. I spoke to Ollie yesterday, you know.
Yeah.
Robbie Williams phoned the other day for a chat. It's so, and I'd never put anybody above any other human being on this planet.
Yeah. You know, Robbie Williams used to have bootnecks looking after it at one stage.
Still does. Yeah, still does. We were having a chat about that. But here's the
my
thing.
mate Martha is one of them.
From this nonsense celebrity point of view that the world we live in, these other podcasters have these, you know, big selling names, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have the way, the delivery. They don't have that bootneck, something that, you know, even our humour, people who've not been in, they get the depth of character behind it, you know, that sort of thing. And they can tell by the way we talk that we know what we're talking about, or there's probably a lot that we're not actually talking about. And so it's a whole interesting situation. But yeah, so I just want to finish off author to author.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to write a book?
Too long is a word. Yeah. I'm not organised, and I should be really.
Hard.
I think, you know, about a year for me, from start to finish. But then other things get in the way, you know, because I worked in Africa last year, and I was away for an oil company, and I go to Poland. I do lecturing and mentoring with senior officers before they go to Kabul and Baghdad. I do that as well. So you know, I'm not one of these people that can you know, do more than one thing at a time. You know, I have to concentrate on that particular thing. I can't multitask. That's the word that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So even now, I should be writing the book every day, but then I'm working on the next script for the next book with Marty, and then I'm getting the odd chapter in, and then I have to do research, because I like things that are really thoroughly researched. So research is a lot of it. And then as an author, you'd know a part of your work, part of your skill is reading, you know, so you have to read a lot, you know, to get that sort of that impetus into the book. So
when you see these authors, Bernie, and they bring out 4 books a year, and you're like, you didn't fucking write that. I don't give a shit. I believe. And the other thing is, I got into writing quite a strange way, really, because I've always loved literature. I've always loved reading, and you know, my English has always been pretty good, never brilliant. And then I decided that I'd get a bit of intellectual body armor, and I'd done a couple of masters, you know. And if you can master academic language,
you know, and you can work within that genre, then like writing a novel isn't that bad, you know, because, you know, so I done a terrorism studies course at St Andrews, so it was a master's MLit, and no, and that was 2 years of my life. And when I looked at the first essay that I put in, and I looked at the last one, there was so much difference. You know, it's a great university. You know, it does bring you on a lot. So that was my sort of.
Which uni was that, mate? Sorry.
St Andrews, up in Scotland.
Okay.
Where Prince William went, although not the same time as me. So yeah, it was.
If he'd gone the same time as you, he could have killed two birds with one stone, Bernie. He could have done his studies and had his bodyguard there.
In actual fact, my son, you know, done the same thing with a. This is my other son, Jason, who's in the States at the moment. He worked. He got offered a job. I got him the job actually, looking after a Bruneian prince at Sandhurst. So he was with him for 2 years at Oxford, and then took him to Sandhurst as well for a year. And Jason earned an awful lot of money. Guess what he done? He put himself through medical school, and now he's a surgeon in the States.
Wow, good effort. Good
yeah,
effort.
I'll tell you what. You know, one thing the Corps does, it teaches you, it gives you a good work ethic. You know, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and it gives you that. It gives you that spiritual body armor that you need through hard times. And then maybe university and studies give you the intellectual body armor that you need when you're operating with people that are admirals, and you know, it just helps. You know.
I think the Marines as well produce more authors than the other branches of the forces,
well, we can always tell a good dip, mate, can't we?
Bernie, thank you ever so much. Just stay on the line, because there's a couple of things after I've said my official goodbyes that we can discuss. But yeah, wow, I'm just exhausted. and as we both know, we didn't even touch the surface. I know that we didn't touch the surface of each subject, let alone your whole life.
I'll tell you what would be a good idea is to just I don't know. I mean, if you want to do this again and just hit on a certain subject, and then we talk about that. Why
don't we do this to the people watching? Leave us a question in the comments.
And then we'll go for that.
And then we'll pick it up again, and we'll just go through them, and we'll answer what you want to know about spying and bodyguard work and military and special forces and unarmed combat. I mean, Jesus, it reads like a boy's own novel for sociopaths, doesn't it? Psychopaths. or should I say very, very driven individuals?
Driven individuals,
yes. Yeah. So, mate, let's chat again soon. To everybody at home, please if you could like and subscribe. You can consider joining my Patreon team for £2 a month. Just helps me to do what I do, but also you get kind of all the inside stuff then. Get to come and meet me at my annual talk, get my books, etc., etc. And big love to you and your families. See you next time.
See you guys.
Hello friend, I hope this finds you well. My name's Chris THRALL. I'm a former Royal Marine Commando, and I fought my way back from chronic trauma and addiction to live, work and travel in 80 countries across all 7 continents, achieving all of my dreams and goals along the way. Now I pass my simple system on to other people, but I can only help you if you like and subscribe. So please do so, because you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.